I was an abject failure in school. I probably suffered from what would now be called ADD or attention deficit syndrome. I could never focus on more than a few subjects at a time, and the only consistency grade-wise I had was gym and art. All you had to do was show up for gym, and you'd pretty much be guaranteed at least a B. I would gush at my straight A's in art class, but my folks not so much. And as a family, we moved around quite a bit. But no matter where we landed, art class was always like home to me. In high school, my guidance counselor tried her best to pry me away from that focus, always telling me art is fun, but you'll never be able to make a living at it. She did her best to conform to her job within the same system. Of course, I knew of many famous artists who did really well, but what I didn't realize was that the school system's main objective was to trim your wings, not encourage them. My ambition became one of escaping school and just finding a place to fit in. I had many great teachers, but I see now that they were under the yoke of the system itself. And as I grew up, I began to see this applied to all forms of compartmentalization. People became slaves to their degrees, licenses, and registrations. No one dared stray away from the leash too far because of risk in not only losing their job/status, but also being blacklisted by their respective fields. It's pretty easy to see this pattern grow as the years went by. Everything was upside down, but I figured it was just me and my inability to adjust to the system itself, to fit in. I never really looked at it as an engineered farm of sorts because we were taught from a very early age, starting with our parents, that school will be the only gateway to any type of decent future. But what kind of future is that? Here, and a guy by the name of Nick Crackman. I don't know a lot about him, but I found this kind of interesting. He made some good points here. And the name of the article is Why Our Current Education System Sucks. It's obviously very easy to shout from the sidelines that our current education system is, to put at its mildest, seriously flawed. Therefore, I will describe in detail why I absolutely believe this to be the case. And this, he makes a good point here, because this is always my contention, and one thing I like to stress as much as possible, that I don't have any problem with teachers. They do their best. They work hard, as anyone in any field does, an endeavor. But their problem is the system itself, as I mentioned before. And as he says, he has no quarrel with and means no disrespect for individual, passionate, dedicated members of the educational realm. It would be wrong of me to express any contention towards any individual who wishes to devote their lives to helping students. They come into this system with the best of intentions. I know that. He knows that. Everyone knows this. And as you'll find out, John Taylor Gatto, who was a 30-year teacher, 30 years in the program himself, found out. Schools kill creativity. All children are born as artists. The problem is to remain an artist as we grow up. Picasso. In 2006, Sir Ken Robinson, a British author and international advisor on education, held a moving must-see TED Talk. I'm not a big fan of TED Talks myself. I think they're sanctioned for specific types of information delivery. But in Robinson's words, being wrong is not the same as being creative. But if you are not prepared to be wrong, you will never come up with something original. It is important to note that creativity is more than an artistic creativity. It is the ability to transcend traditional ideas and create innovative solutions by using one's imagination. And that's a good point. Can't really argue with that. Now, here's some great quotes by John Taylor Gatto, and we'll go into a little bit of John Taylor Gatto's history in just a second, but these are some great quotes. I've noticed a fascinating phenomenon in my 30 years of teaching. Schools and schooling are increasingly irrelevant to the great enterprises of the planet. No one believes any more that scientists are trained in science classes, or politicians in civics classes, or poets in English classes. The truth is that schools don't really teach anything except how to obey orders. This is a great mystery to me because thousands of humane, caring people work in schools as teachers and aides and administrators. But the abstract logic of the institution overwhelms their individual contributions. Although teachers do care and work very hard, the institution is psychopathic. It has no conscience. It rings a bell, and the young man in the middle of writing a poem must close his notebook and move to a different cell, where he must memorize that humans and monkeys derive from a common ancestor. And then we have another one here. Children learn what they live. Put kids in a class, and they will live out their lives in an invisible cage, isolated from their chance at community. Interrupt kids with bells and horns all the time, and they will learn that nothing is important or worth finishing. Ridicule them, and they will retreat from human association. Shame them, and they will find 100 ways to get even. The habits taught in large-scale organizations are deadly. Whatever an education is, it should make you a unique individual, not a conformist. And that's a huge one right there. You don't want conformity. Conformity is for lines on a screen, zeros and ones, digital. That's conformity. It should furnish you with an original spirit, because we are all original, and with which to tackle the big challenges. It should allow you to find values which will be your roadmap through your life. It should make you spiritually rich, a person who loves whatever you are doing, wherever you are, whomever you are with. It should teach you what is important, how to live, and how to die. What's gotten in the way of education in the United States is the theory of social engineering that says there is one right way to proceed with growing up. Square pegs in round holes. But let's see what else we have here. Who is John Taylor Gatto? That's a good one. Well, let's see what Wikipedia has to say. Gatto was born to Andrew Michael Mario and Frances Virginia Gatto in Monongahela, Pennsylvania, steel town near Pittsburgh. In his youth, let me stretch this out a little bit. In his youth, he attended public high schools through Pittsburgh metro area, including, this is kind of not really that important. Let me see here. He worked as a writer and held several odd jobs before borrowing his roommate's license to investigate teaching. Gatto also ran for the New York State Senate, 29th District in 1985, and in 1988 as a member of Conservative Party of New York against incumbent David Patterson. He was named New York City Teacher of the Year, 89, 90, 91, and New York State Teacher of the Year, 91. In 91, he wrote a letter announcing his retirement titled, "I Quit, I Think," to the op-ed pages of the Wall Street Journal, saying that he no longer wished to hurt kids to make a living. He then began a public speaking career and writing career, and has received several awards from libertarian organizations, including the Alexis de Tocqueville Award for Excellence in the Advancements of Educational Freedom in 1997. Then in the main thesis here, he makes some good points. Gatto asserts the following regarding what school does to children in dumbing us down. It confuses the students. It presents an incoherent ensemble of information that the child needs to memorize to stay in school. Apart from the tests and trials, this programming is similar to the television. It fills almost all the free time of children. One sees and hears something only to forget it again. It teaches them to accept their class affiliation. It makes them indifferent. It makes them emotionally dependent. It makes them intellectually dependent. It teaches them a kind of self-confidence that requires constant confirmation by experts, provisional self-esteem. It makes it clear to them that they cannot hide because they are always supervised. He also draws a contrast between communities and networks, with the former being healthy and schools being examples of the latter. He says networks have become an unhealthy substitute for community in the United States. Then we have here, this is pretty good, pretty sad in the in where we've come to rest here in this world. Schools are dangerous. John Taylor Gatto, Red Pill, C-SPAN. But just listen to this.
John Taylor Gatto is former New York City Teacher of the Year and New York State Teacher of the Year. He has a new piece in this month's Harper's, Against School, How Public Education Cripples Our Kids and Why. Mr. Gatto, what's your basic theme here?
Well, my basic theme, I suppose, would be that schools are dangerous places for kids. They retard intellectual development. They retard moral development. They bankrupt communities financially by bleeding hundreds of billions of dollars into unproductive activity. And they bleed communities dynamically by taking the energies of children away from the general society and dissipating them. They're places of intimidation, bullying, sexual harassment, criminality, and even arson and murder. And the epidemic of national obesity can be traced, I think, to the training ground of the school cafeteria.
Okay, there's a lot of ground to cover there. Should
this guy's head's about to explode.
Should schooling be compulsory?
It should not be compulsory.
So, you know, they kind of paint him as a lunatic on these shows or whatever these circus acts are, like C-SPAN, which is typical of what they usually do. Here's another one. Dropping school doesn't mean dropping education. This was about the dismissal of MIT's Marilee Jones. Woman had been there for 28 or 30 years, and they let her go. But this will blow your mind anyway.
Disgrace after 28 years of splendid service in which she won MIT's highest honors. Jones was a specialist at female recruitment. During her long tenure, she tripled the number of women at MIT. She was hailed from coast to coast among the admissions fraternity. Press questioning of MIT students at the time of her dismissal called her beloved, almost revered, and irreplaceable. I took that from the Wall Street Journal story.
But we got to let her go anyway.
Canned molestation of students, selling MIT secrets to Microsoft. No, none of the above. Some diligent snoop had discovered that the college degree she claimed at the time of her hiring 28 years earlier were fakes. She had actually been a nightclub torch singer in upstate New York country western nightclubs until the moment MIT...
I screwed that up for a second. I paused I meant to pause the video, but I paused the entire thing here. He made mention of the fact that she was not fired for relaying MIT secrets or molesting any of her students or anything of that nature. Some snoop who decided to go back through her records, and the reason they did it, obviously, is because she was too good and she was thinking outside the box. And they decided it was time for her to go, to let in some new robot zombies that will do as they're told. So they had to get rid of her. And the way to do that is to comb through everything about her. And they had to go back almost 30 years to find out that she had fudged on her resume about where she went to school. But this is great. Listen to this.
He took her in. New York country western nightclubs until the moment.
Wait a minute.
She had actually been a a nightclub torch singer in upstate New York country western nightclubs until the moment MIT took her in. Now, why anyone with a good joke like that would wish? Anyway, MIT Chancellor Philip Clay told.
Here's a fantastic person that has been out and about in the world, and she decides to devote her life to the kids, to actual education. I shouldn't say education, but actual teaching. A perfect person for that position. But they don't want anybody like that.
Reporters, the door was now closed forever on another torch singer in admissions. Quote, in future, he said, we will take a big lesson from this experience. Now, what lesson might that be? It couldn't be the obvious lesson that degrees are only magical talismans. They promise nothing, and only meritorious performance is the proper measure of quality. Couldn't be that. What degree should we give bureaucrat Clay for costing MIT a brilliant colleague who added great value to the school? The colossal jerk degree? Dropping school does not mean dropping education. That's the real lesson.
All right. And then we'll wrap it up here with schools were designed by corporate foundations, which is so true, so telling, and it's so hidden.
One system of schooling has had a century and a half to prove itself. It is a ghastly failure. Children need the widest possible range of roads in order to find the right one to accommodate themselves. John Taylor Gatto.
Captain, my captain. Sit down, Mr. Anderson. Get back to class, right now! Sit down. Sit down! This is your final warning, Anderson.
Yeah, I'll get up.
How dare you? Do you hear me? Oh, Captain, my captain. Just go straight, I warn you. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. All of you. I want you seated.
But anyway, you get it. And I hope the teachers out there take my point. You're great people. You deserve better. Thanks.